Hello. Today I would like to talk about the effect of grammatical aspect on Ma stative verb roots or senses of verb roots. The basic thesis is that grammatical aspect forms coerce stative verbs into dynamic ones. Ma is a language complex with multiple varieties found in Kenya and Tanzania. It belongs to the Eastern Nilotic family. First of all, a little bit of background. Ma has two major lexical aspect classes shown by the morphology that the verb can take. I will, for purposes today, basically divide these into stative and dynamic types. There are several subtypes discussed by Koenig 1993, and also I rely on the work of Chafe 1970. But today I'll just talk about stative and dynamic ones. There's major evidence for these two basic types from the kinds of morphology that the verbs can take. So directionals can occur on dynamic verbs, but not on stative ones. Middles can occur on dynamic transitive verbs, but not on stative ones. The antipassive is similar to the middles in its distribution for this issue. The inchoative u or un can occur on stative roots, but not on dynamic ones. The progressive ita cannot occur on statives, but can occur on dynamic roots. And the perfective can occur on both types, but it has different semantic effects. So with statives, it's a perfect inchoative, but with dynamics, it's just perfect. There are many different types of lexical stative verbs in terms of their semantics. So these are used to express color, taste, temperature, shape and weight, various other physical properties, emotions, animate propensity, and so on. So words that in many other languages might be the category of adjectives, in Ma, these are basically stative verbs. There are also transitive statives like have, be at, a location, be equal to, and so on. Now, getting to the main point of the effect of grammatical aspect on stative verbs. There's first of all an aspectually unmarked verb, unmarked both morphologically but also in that there's no particular aspect reading. The aspect reading, it depends on the lexical aspect that we have just discussed and also on discourse context categories or aspect domain like. One that I will refer to as the prospective inchoative and just gloss it as inchoative. It has various range of senses, including about to become as well as become. It occurs only on stative roots, never on dynamic ones. The perfect has a range of meanings and functions also, but in discourse, it is primarily a perfect. It has been claimed in other literature to also have perfective meaning. We'll talk about that more. It also has inchoative and subjunctive, but I'm not going to talk about the modal uses today. And the progressive. So these are the three morphological categories. Now, one needs to keep in mind clearly the difference between the name of a category, the three that we've just talked about, plus the unmarked form, versus names for functions, because as I've just alluded to, some of these morphemes or these morphemic categories have multiple functions. So when we talk about naming these morphemes, versus there's functions, and you get into the literature, there's just a plethora of different kinds of terms that have been used. So the what I will call the unmarked form, Tucker and Mpaye 1955 called it the present, but they talked about how it can be used for present, habitual, general, truth, and future. This is only part of the story of how it can be used. Koenig 1993 called it the imperfective, but in fact it has, I would not call it an imperfective form. The prospective inchoative, Tucker and Mpaye called it the extra future, but also talked about how it can be used for inceptive. It really is not a future form at all. Koenig called it the proximate. She talked about it as expressing a preparatory phase to a change of state, sort of about to become, or inceptive. She also said it has irrealis meaning. I think it's just a prospective inchoative. The perfect, Tucker and Paye called it the past. They also noted how it can be used for the situations equivalent to the English perfect, and it has subjunctive meaning. Koenig called it a perfective. I think it's better thought of as a perfect, as well as having a subjunctive meaning. And then finally, the third one has been called a continuous by Tucker and Mpaye. Koenig calls it a progressive. Its dominant uses are really for progressive. Now, we'll get into the functions of these grammatical aspect categories, especially with stative verbs, but as we go through the data, I will first briefly note the major functions with dynamic verb bases, as I think that's where a lot of the naming and the functions have been described in previous literature. So the unmarked aspect form, unmarked, there's no aspect in it. And that can be called the present and Koenig called the imperfective. With dynamic verbs, this form can be used to express present time, timeless general truths, future, past, perfective, depending on the discourse context. So it really has no particular aspect in it. With stative verbs, it expresses static condition. It just allows expression of the basic meaning of the lexical meaning of the verb, and it can be said in past, present, generic time, but not specifically in future time. So here's some examples with dynamic verbs taken from text. Here in this particular case, it expresses an overview situation, the overview of a situation, of a whole series of events, but set in past time. The past time here is set by the date 1946. The relevant verb is underlined here. There is no aspect, no grammatical aspect marked in this verb. And we get the meaning of, in the year of 1946, the senior district commissioner of Narok was killed in the marketplace among the Loita people in Murillo. But this is really a summary of the whole discourse. Later in the same discourse, you can see how this unmarked form, this especially unmarked form, is used to express perfective actions. He came out to go follow them, and he found or discovered that they had been driven to the marketplace. So both of these are like punctual event or really perfective events in a series of events. You can also use this especially unmarked form for future time readings. Like this comes from another story where a man is very, very angry at his son. I will curse him so that he may die. It's a prospective future kind of reading. Or if or when I find him, I will slaughter him by sword. And all of these underlined forms are especially unmarked. Now, with stative verbs, this especially unmarked form can be used to express past time situations, present time situations, or timeless situations. So we find an example in line F, that warrior was not there. We have the stative verb be at. In line H, he was not there when his cows were taken. He was at the meat eating camp. Again, this be at is the unmarked form. Here's some from another text. When it was said, let's open the cloths that these girls were carrying, the fruits of the two sisters are red or were red. In natural English translation would be were red, but it could also be red. There they are, they're red when you see them in that condition. It can also be with represent present time situations or timeless situations. So that man has 100 head of small stock. This example 8 here is from a riddle, and we have the especially unmarked form here with the stative verb to be filled with or to fill. It doesn't mean the action of filling, but just be like the cup is full. Here we have snakes fill our house and they don't bite. That's the riddle. The answer to this is strips of leather or strips of rope. But just snakes statically fill our house and they don't bite. Now, going to the marked aspectual forms, the u or un, I've called this a prospective inchoative. It never occurs on roots or bases that are already dynamic in sense. There is dialect variation in form. Here's one dialect to become full where you see aboreyu with this u form. North Samburuma, we get Kobore E, where we get this E form. It will become full like a barrel filled with rain. But this idea of the kind of the change of state is, we have this stative root, bore, the change of state is based on this inchoative here. Now, Koenig, in her discussion of Il Chamusma, says that this is a proximate form, meaning it's really the preparatory, the inchoative, or what I'm calling the inchoative, expresses the preparatory stage and not the actual change of state. And she gives, largely, her work is based on very careful elicitation, um, very extensive elicitation. And she gives examples like number 19 here. The meat seems to have gone bad, but has not gone bad, so that you can negate the, you can, excuse me, you can negate the proposition here, and that shows that the first one, the meat has gone bad. Really, it means here the meat stinks proximate, or the meat stinks inchoative. The fact that you can negate it means that there actually hasn't been a change of state yet. And she gives a number of examples like this. Here are some from my own data from different text examples. So in 34, so if when they start or return to cease doing those things that they are doing, this land will be good. So it's something that hasn't happened yet, but we get a future implication here. Also in this imperative, be quiet or become quiet. We get the inchoative on this stative root here. Again, you could say that's a future. We find it being situation. So the text is from a description of what happens when an older man dies. What are the processes and ceremonies that will go on? And we find in 40 here, when he approaches becoming weak, and it's kind of a euphemism for when he's close to death. So you could say, well, this is just a timeless kind of situation we're describing here because of the nature of the text. In 58, however, we have what I think is a real change of state expression in a clearly past time context. The past time is marked by the lexical adverb apa, meaning before, which occurs 3 lines earlier than 58a. And the meaning here is he eventually became good when he married his wife. Yes, he went to become nice, or he actually reformed here. And we find this inchoative in situations where a real change of state is being expressed. Now, we also find the inchoative, or what I'm calling this prospective inchoative, on middle forms. So a derived stative, as in these are elicited examples. So like it is edible. So to eat with the middle creates a state. It is eaten, or it is in the eaten condition. You put the inchoative on that, and literally we could say it means it can be eaten. But another way of rendering that is it expresses the state of this thing is edible. So is this a perspective kind of thing? Well, if it's viewed from the view of the perspective of it can be eaten, but it's not yet eaten, it's not yet in that state. But in fact, here it is in the state of being edible. So we find these kinds of uses of the inchoative as well. Now, going to the second marked aspect, which is the perfect, this is used for prior relevant situations with the dynamic verbs. So things that are out of the main event line, off of the main event line. So here we have this story about the senior district commissioner who was killed in the marketplace. And it was the warrior of Sentu who had killed that district commissioner. So this is elaborating on the whole event. And they had fought over his bullock, which is the next line, but it's even prior to the killing. So again, these are out of the narrative sequence. That is really when we use this perfect form. Here's some more examples from the same text. He came out to go follow them. And this is the unmarked form. he found that they had been driven actually prior to the event of finding. So it's a pretty classic perfect, and this is what you find all over the place in discourse. Um, with stative verbs, again, we have prior relevant inchoative situations. So come out of the house because the outside of the kraal has become fresh. It's been cleansed after the person has died. It had already become fresh, and then you should come out. I have grown or gotten fat. The fruits have become red. So you see the real inchoative thing, but it's like prior to the current reference point, whatever that reference point is. Um, Here's some more examples of where I think the perfect really shows a inchoative transition into a state, and not just a preparatory phase. So we have the verb root aru, which means to whoop, to make a sound. You put it in the middle, it means to be hysterical as one of its senses. You put that middle form into the perfect, they became hysterical, and it really means that transition into a new state. So if we compare the perfect versus the inchoative on stative basis, an inchoative really marks this transition from one situation into a new state. The prospective, in most of its uses, perhaps you might say, especially in elicitation, it really marks this preparatory phase, but there are situations where I think it can also mark this transition into a new state. But with the prospective inchoative, there's really no reference time or situation that that's being related to. The perfect use of the inchoative with statives really has this idea of a reference point, but there was some transition into a new state or new condition prior to that reference point. So that's the difference between those two in their inchoative uses. Then finally, there's an overt progressive aspectual form that we find here. He was at the meat camp eating meat in the forest. So this progressive here is an ongoing activity while something else is happening. Here's a couple more, and I think it's from these kinds of readings that Tucker and Mpaya called this the continuous. Probably you see those black mountains, or like you are seeing those black mountains, that black place there, that is the Kikuyu there, but it's on this verb to see. This progressive is typically rejected with stative basis. Most people in most situations say, no, you can't use it, and it's extremely rare in text, if ever. So you can't use the progressive to express like it is in the process of becoming red or it is becoming fat. But it can sometimes, with some verbs, derive or coerce a try-to or encodative sense. So with the verb root to be hard, a rock is very hard. Here with a human being, you are strong or courageous today. If you put the progressive on this same verb, it has the sense of a dynamic, in more inchoative kind of idea. She is getting physically stronger, or she is trying to be emotionally strong when bereaved. So to summarize all of this, I know this is a lot of information. These overt grammatical aspects add dynamicity or change when they occur on stative verbs, deriving a process kind of idea or involving effort or action of some sort. The inchoative can derive a process. So the hide, the skin of an animal will become hard or strong or expensive with the overt inchoative. With the overt perfect, the hide has or had become hard or strong or expensive, another kind of process that is already completed. And the progressive, she is getting physically stronger, is a process, or she is trying to be emotionally strong. There's effort there, whether or not you want to call that an explicit action. I would say this is more dynamic action sort of thing. So many thanks to everyone who has supported this work, and especially to Ma speakers. Thank you for your attention today.